Hello and welcome to Always Bored Never Boring. Recently, the good people at Avalon Hill sent me a review copy of the latest HeroQuest expansion Against the Ogre Horde. We've already done an unboxing, covering all the new contents and rules and giving my initial review, but we are far from done. This is such a big box of new content, I have decided to run a full week of videos covering different aspects of the fun. Today we are going to do a more detailed look at the new hero class, the Druid. Against the Ogre Horde is an exciting expansion for a number of reasons, not least because it marks the first time that an official HeroQuest Druid has been available to fans at retail. I say at retail because the truth is the Druid is not a new hero class at all. It was first introduced during the Hasbro Pulse HasLab crowdfunding campaign that launched Avalon Hill's new edition of HeroQuest, serving as a backer incentive to promote early adoption. During that campaign, Avalon Hill employed the services of a guest artist to design the Druid, and I've been quite vocal about this. I thought the result was very unappealing. It was giving the Orc Bard a run for its money. We ended up with a woman with what the artist described as a soft body shape with a succulent headpiece and attire based on gym clothes. While I know some people liked the final miniature, it wasn't for me. And I felt the final look of the piece was completely at odds with the artist's vision, which they described as a strong battle-ready character. Fortunately, for reasons, maybe due to a rights issue with the artist, or maybe because Avalon Hill felt a different interpretation of the Druid would be more suitable for the HeroQuest setting, we don't get the soft-bodied succulent in Against the Ogre Horde. We get two brand new miniatures, I guess technically 3, to represent halfling druids. Honestly, I could not be happier, because I think these miniatures are so much better than the original design. This is the male variant. He stands just a little taller than a goblin and has a nice strong stance. It's a single piece cast, so slightly flat in design, but not in an obvious way, and there is a slight twist through the movement of the body. The details aren't really crisp, but I think it will paint up just fine. The Y-shaped staff is a traditional form of hiking stick, which gives the model a nice bit of character, as you would expect a druid to spend his days trekking through the wilderness. However, with the oversized and exaggerated form of the staff, it also feels like a nod to the Hoopak sling staff weapons of D&D. This is the female variant, which I like even more than the male version. I prefer the more dynamic stance, and I think her staff is a lot cooler. It has a curved top, so it looks like a bishop's crozier or shepherd's crook. I like that because it has those connotations with being a leader or protector of a congregation and the care of animals, which I think works really well with the idea of a druid. The third miniature we have here is a wolf. The wolf's inclusion in Against the Ogre Horde is primarily for use with the animal ally rules, which allow parties with less than 4 heroes to bring along a wolf friend to keep them company. However, this is also an acceptable miniature for representing the druid once they have shapeshifted. I say acceptable because I really do wish we'd got a bear. The art on the shapeshift spell, which we will look at momentarily, shows the druid changing into a bear, gaining the kind of stat boosts you would expect a bear to have. A bear seems like a powerful and intimidating choice. I mean, if you were a little halfling, wouldn't you choose to transform into a hulking beast if you were threatened? Also, I can more easily imagine a bear opening doors or swinging around a weapon. Although, I guess a wolf can use a sword. Regardless, I would have liked a bear, and I have heard some people say they intend to use a polar war bear from the Frozen Horror expansion to represent the shapeshifted druid, which seems like a pretty decent idea to me. But the big question is, what does our little halfling friend bring to a party of heroes? Their stats are Attack 1, Defend 2, 6 Body and 4 Mind, rolls 2 red dice for movement, starts with a dagger, and gets a fixed loadout of 3 druid spells. That puts them squarely in the same camp as the elf, who has the same profile except they get 2 attack dice from starting with a short sword. And this does concern me slightly, because pound for pound, I would say the elf is a better choice. Not only does the elf start with a better weapon, they also get to either choose one of the 4 sets of elemental spells or else pick 3 spells from the 8 elf spells from Mage of the Mirror. In either case, the elf has a much better selection of spells and is therefore much more flexible, adapting not only to the composition of the party, but the adventure they are facing. Additionally, the druid is not allowed to use any metal armour, while the elf has no such restrictions. That means the druid is more limited in terms of scaling up to meet new challenges over the course of a campaign. The druid does, however, have some advantages related to their set of unique spells, so I guess we better take a look at them. The first spell is Life Force. The target of the spell receives 4 body points, not exceeding their maximum. Fair enough, it's a healing spell, exactly the same as Heal Body or Water of Healing from the base game. I think a healing spell is an obvious and good choice for a druid. Not the most exciting spell in the world, but a healing spell is always useful, and I would say in this case essential, because the druid may be taking up your only spellcaster slot in the team and therefore needs to be able to keep heroes healthy. Also, they may need to heal themselves frequently as they love a scrap. More on that in a moment. The second spell is Pixie, which feels like another little nod to D&D and the Conjure Woodland Being spell. This one is more interesting as it has some built-in versatility, similar to the Genie spell from the Wind Elemental deck. The summoned Pixie will either heal one hero for 2 body points, or reveal all traps and secret doors in a location the druid can see. And much like the Genie, which can either do a massive attack or open a door, that Pixie is only ever going to be used for one thing. Let's be honest, nobody has ever used their Genie to open a door, and I cannot fathom a time when you would want to waste an action and a spell to search for a secret door or a trap. Sure, you can use the spell in the middle of a fight to reveal any potential threats you can't search for due to the presence of monsters, but in reality, when are you going to do that when you could be using the spell to heal someone, or just using your action to fight the monsters? Because make no mistake, the druid is up for a scrap. We really are getting to that. I appreciate the idea of a spell that is multifunctional. Anything that adds a decision point is a good thing, but those decisions do need to have some weight, some tension. This is more like the illusion of choice. Healing is always useful, so this Pixie spell really just feels like a nerfed heal spell that may, in a very rare circumstance, have a potential alternative use. Ultimately, 2 of the 3 druid spells are healing, and one of them isn't even that good, and more could have been done with that. I think I would have made the Pixie spell so you could either summon one Pixie that heals one hero for 4 body points, or summons a number of Pixies that heal each hero in line of sight for 2 body points each. That's a more interesting choice to me. Do you put all the healing onto one hero, or do you give a little boost to the whole team? Then I would ditch the Life Force spell and give the druid something that is a bit more offensive and adds more to the flexibility of the character. Maybe a Verdant Growth type spell that summons vines to entrap a single enemy for a turn, or which attacks with barbs at range. And that brings us to our third and final spell, which is the druid's big thing, their signature move, the Shapeshift. Great choice for a spell, and something that instantly makes the druid more exciting to play. Being able to transform into an animal and rampage through enemy forces is just fun. While shapeshifted, the druid gets 1 extra defend dice and can roll 1 extra attack dice when making melee attacks. The spell lasts until the druid takes damage, but is restored for use again if the druid is returned to maximum body points. That's pretty decent. 1 extra attack and defend dice with the chance to regain the spell isn't too shabby at all. Regaining this spell is why it's important for the druid to have at least 1 healing spell, and I do understand why the designers decided to give the druid 2 healing spells to make it even easier to keep recycling the shapeshifting ability. However, it is somewhat concerning that in order to get the most out of this spell, the druid has to get into melee, where they are at increased risk of taking a hit and immediately reverting to halfling form. Really, to maintain this spell with any kind of consistency, the druid needs good defense, but they only start with 2 defend dice and they only have access to shields and bracers. While a defense of 5 is nothing to sneer at, even a fully armoured knight only rolls 6 defend dice, the fact the druid is going to be on the front line and facing the brunt of the attacks does make it seem like maintaining animal form is going to be quite difficult. And once they do lose animal form, they are going to be in the heart of danger with only limited access to defensive items. As an additional issue, shapeshifting is going to cost the druid their action for the turn. If they do it at the start of a fight, a concerted effort by the monsters could mean that the Druid has reverted to their halfling form before they even get to make an attack. I do feel like there should be a way to pay to maintain the animal form. For example, on taking damage, the Druid could spend a mind point to focus their will through the pain and maintain the animal form. If reduced to 0 mind points, they would go into shock as normal. I think a little safety net like that could prevent some very anticlimactic situations where the Druid bears out, or wolfs out I suppose, to face the final boss and then immediately takes damage and has to finish the final showdown as a halfling. It also creates another one of those decision points and introduces a bit more risk as the Druid exerts themselves to the very limit to maintain the animal form for longer. But of course, I do appreciate that as with all things HeroQuest, the designers were trying to keep things simple. HeroQuest isn't supposed to be overburdened with rules, and I do think that what they came up with is probably the leanest, most straightforward way to represent a shape-shifting Druid on the tabletop. I certainly think they could have done more, but it's not bad. Back when I reviewed the Warlock, I said I thought she was my favourite of the 3 characters that were initially created for the crowdfunding campaign. On reflection, I would probably reconsider that stance. The Warlock is a fun idea, but I have misgivings about elements of the character and design. The Druid is going to be a little bit more fun, and as they have less restrictions on the types of equipment they can use, they are going to be more interesting in the long term as they have more scaling opportunities. Also, in general, I lean more towards liking the idea of a Druid than a Warlock anyway. Overall, this does feel like a good addition to the hero roster. More choices are always good when you are picking a hero or trying to construct interesting new parties. Even just one new hero in the lineup can completely change the way you approach any given dungeon and can reinvent missions you have already played. It gives you new things to think about, new tactics to try, and it stops gameplay from becoming too stale. I still believe there are only 3 new heroes that have really challenged the OG heroes for a spot on the team. The Rogue Heir is an easy swap for the Dwarf, the Knight is an easy swap for the Barbarian, and the Wandering Monk is just something completely new that doesn't feel like anything that came before it. But the Druid is a good new addition that I am sure lots of players are going to get a real kick out of. And at least they don't have a succulent on their heads. But let me know your thoughts in the comments because that is it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like this video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so. And hopefully, I'll see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.